Well, hello, Falguni. How are you? Good to see you too. Good to
Hey,
be with you in your
Spence.
chapter.
Yes,
Hi.
it's amazing to see you in Mumbai chapter after Limsi.
You're right,
Yes.
Falguni. Yes, so I guess
Oh,
Spencer was
yes.
also your teacher,
We
I
spent
guess,
more than one
for
and
your.
a half day, and after that, multiple call one on one. So yeah, Spencer knows everything, how I speak and everything. So
Good to see you, Falguni. So glad you're here.
yes. And I see the same energy, Spencer. It doesn't matter, right, for you whether it is a virtual or a face to face. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we get to work at it, right? This is what we do.
Yeah.
We're gonna have fun tonight.
And that's why we are here.
Yes. Oh, let's see, Swati. Hello. We got. If I don't pronounce your name right, please forgive me. But Dayanand and Raphael. Hello, Raphael.
So Rafael is
Oh,
our vice president of marketing as well. And thank you, Rafael, for joining.
and then
Hi Spencer. Morning.
how are you?
I'm doing good. Nice to hear you.
Good. Hello, Amit, Manish, Raful. Atikan Kamara Jaswar. Sorry, I'm working on that. That's well. There's an interesting name. It's the DJ PNVG. Hello to whoever you are. Tilak, hello. La, 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 la. Ranjit, hello. Oh, there you go. Sidesh. All right, Ranjit is expecting a blockbuster session, so we'll turn it over to you, Ranjit, and then we'll make sure that that happens. Thanks, Falguni. La 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 la. La 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 la.
So, Spencer, are you still going for hiking?
Of course.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
In this
So
lockdown, still you are continuing?
I do. I go run in the mountains, and if I run into anybody, I pull over to the side of the trail, no problem. Today, I'm taking a bunch of boys to the lake that are young men. We're going to go swimming at the lake, paddle board,
Oh, wow.
play
So
frisbee.
good.
Yeah, we'll wear masks while we drive up there, but these young men don't have a lot of activities, and they need to get out.
Oh, that's amazing. Here we are not able to do all these things.
Well, we're luckily where I am. The cases are fairly low. We still have to be careful in public. We wear our masks, but
Okay.
restaurants are open, and So it's, the population here in the state of Utah is only about 3 million, and it's a very large state. So there's not the proximity that you may have.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
So, hi, Aman, welcome. Shyam Prakash. Did I say that correctly, Falguni?
Yes, we say Sham.
Shyam
Yes.
Prakash.
Yeah.
Excellent. I need some help with those skills.
No, you are perfect now in pronouncing.
You're
Maybe,
perfect.
yeah, maybe a little bit if you find South Indian name, you might have some kind of difficulty, but you are too good in pronouncing Indian names.
No, I get to practice, but I like to say hi, and I got Nilima.
All right, I think it's 9:05, 7:05 my time, Indian time. So, yes, our president, Mr. Bharat Bhagat, has also joined. All right, Falguni, I'm just starting right now. So first and foremost, good morning, Spencer. Thank you for your time this morning. Just a brief profile about Spencer Horn before I speak about him. Yes, he has been our coach, especially for me and Falguni when we were doing our leadership masterclass on PMI. So, quick introduction. The thing he's most proud about in his life is his family. He has been married 34 years to the same woman. She's a partner and COO of Altium Leadership. Together, they have 5 children and 5 grandchildren. They anticipate 25 more before we are done. He loves outdoors. He usually mountain bikes or runs several times a week. He loves to learn. He's a MS in economics from the University of Utah. He is a certified team performance coach and a licensed behavior analyst. He has worked with major organizations like National Geographic, Radio City Music Productions, and more. He developed IMAX theaters in partnership with several companies, including National Geographic Television. He has managed several complex projects in Canada and in the United States. He has been speaking professionally for 11 years. He started speaking at PMI events since 2010. And since 2015, he has been a regular speaker at the LIM meetings that I just mentioned. This will be the 7th year that he'll be the final speaker for LIMC cohort, which is made up of PMI chapter leaders from all over the world. His focus is on the leadership and business strategy segments of the development triangle, because that is where he sees the greatest opportunity for most project managers he works with. His focus today is to help you think differently about greater responsibility for your own personal growth and successes, not just as a project manager, but also in life. Over to you, Spencer.
Thank you, Manoj. So excited to be with you in Mumbai. I feel like I'm right there with you. And is it dry or rainy today?
It's raining heavily.
Raining heavily. Well, that's wonderful. We are dry and sunny here this morning, and so I have to put on lots of suntan lotion so I don't get burned when I go out to the lake today. But we're a drier climate. I know that that's the rainy season where you are, and I wish that I could be with you in person, but these are extraordinary times. And 2020 might be one of those years that we just wish we could forget. This has been a challenging year for so many. I talk to people all over the world. I co-host people on our podcast from Pakistan and Brazil and from Europe and from Africa. And everyone I talk to, they're struggling. People are worried about their future. They're worried about their health. They're really, in this country, in the United States, there's a study that came out last month by the University of Chicago, and it measures happiness. And what they found is that happiness in Americans is only at about 14%, which is down from 33% 2 years ago. And they've been keeping track of this for 50 years. This is the lowest that it's ever been in 50 years. And so really people feel isolated, they feel alone, they feel, like there's so much uncertainty. Am I going to get sick? Am I going to lose my position? Am I, financial security is in question, and people are worried about civic and social unrest, at least in this country. And when this lockdown happened in March, for us in this country, we have the lowest, basically the highest unemployment, the lowest employment rate since 1939. And right now, in states like Nevada, where I just came from, not too far from here, unemployment is at 33%. That's 1 in 3 people are unemployed. Now, I know in India, in April and May, unemployment was about 23.5%. And so good news that in June that went down, it dropped the unemployment rate to about 11% if my figures are correct. But still, that's a lot of people in your country that are also feeling some of these challenges. And when this started in March, personally, I had a friend who called me who's a speaker, and in just 2 weeks, he lost $60,000 in revenue for speaking live events. I personally lost close to 50,000 in that first. So my income was absolutely impacted. I know people, a friend of mine who is a consultant for the International Olympic Committee, and his contracts they were canceled, and everybody, all the consultants were canceled. And this had such a terrible impact on him and his family. Now, luckily, they renewed part of it at a much lower rate, but the other challenge that we're having is most of us are working from home, which creates all kinds of new issues. We are isolated, we're alone, and many of us are working longer. And you know what I'd like you to do, Manoj, is pin me so that my screen is up on the main screen. If you can do that, maybe I can. All right.
Yes, I will. I have stopped the share, so you can actually share your screen, Spencer.
So Manoj, the way I have it, you need to pin it because it's built right into my whole system. So you just gotta pin me so that it shows up. All right.
I don't see the option for pin, but I'll make you the host, so you can go ahead and do. Do you see that option now? Because I don't see that option on my Zoom.
Okay, hold on a second. All right, we just got to fix this and give us a second here. All right, let's see if we can make this happen. Well, if you go right next to my name, you can, oh geez. Yeah, we're not sharing my screen. We just there's a way to pin me so that my screen shows up on your screen, Manoj. All right, everybody, this is the fun part of presentations here. It's all gonna be good.
Okay, let me just check. Just hold on.
Manoj, you need to stop sharing your screen first. Yeah.
There you go.
Now you do it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Is that up, Falguni, for everybody?
No, it is still, we see everyone's name.
Now it's fine. We can see full screen now.
Okay. So you can see the slide now.
At least I'm not able to see the slide. I don't know is it everyone are able to see the slides?
Yeah, we can see it, Falguni.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you for that. Well, we're good, and we love to be.
Window. You need to double tap it. It will
just go to speaker view. Go to speaker view, Falguni.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Are we there? Woohoo! Okay, we should all be there. All right, so most of us have been working from home, which has caused a whole new set of problems, right? We're working longer and not less. And there's a thing called the Parkinson's Law that says that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. And the time that we have spent commuting is now spent working, and we have very few or little breaks. So we're working longer and not less. And some of us are worried about job loss. We're afraid to say no. If our boss asks us to do something, there's little or no life balance. So that's a problem, and that's causing stress, anxiety, and depression. And so what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to ask you guys a question. And I want to know from each of you, how are you feeling right now? Just put it in the chat if you feel comfortable doing this. I want you to put it in the chat where you say how you're feeling right now about work, about your life. I just want to hear from a few, and I'm monitoring the chats there. Glad slide is visible. Thank you for that feedback. So be typing in the chat over there how you personally are feeling, what's going on, completely transformed right now, excited, expecting to hear you, uncertain and anxious, feels like my head will explode, thank you so much, very hectic schedule, feeling in the middle, very stressful, yes, not happy. Feel like you are imprisoned, waiting for the vaccine, don't know where to start. So common that these are feelings that so many people are having. Thank you so much. I want this to be interactive, even though you're on mute. Please, I'm going to be asking you questions that I want you to be able to speak in the chat, and I'll yell out as many as that I see. Yes, this is the age of new normal. Yes, we're looking at the new normal, but I want to know specifically how you are feeling, how this is impacting you. And we'll ask several questions, but I want to share with you a concept that was developed by Swiss psychiatrist, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. In 1969, she developed what's called the grief cycle as it relates to death and dying. And it is very, very applicable to us in our lives as we are dealing with incredible stress in our life. And also maybe some of us know people that are sick or have even died because of the pandemic that we have right now. And she shared that there are 5 sections to this grief cycle that I want to share with you. And the first is that we have what's called denial, right? And this is a coping mechanism. This is where we are just like, it's going to get better. It's going to go away soon. It's really a survival mechanism. We're saying, is this really happening? And of course, now it's been about 5 months, but early on, this was something that happened. We rationalize that it's going to be over soon. Secondly, we get to what's called anger. And this is where we ask very unhealthy questions like, why me? Why is this happening to me? We can start to blame other countries or other peoples and for our problems and our challenges. And we say things like, if you have faith, you might question, where's God? And how could he let this happen to me? And, maybe we say that life's not fair in this phase. And then we get to the place where we start bargaining. And this is where we say, I will do anything if I don't have to put up with the new normal right now. I just want to go back to the way it was. I'll work longer, I'll work harder, I'll take that shift, I'll work with that bad boss that I didn't want to work for, I'll take that job that I turned down, whatever we're willing to compromise and do whatever we need to do. And this is where we start saying, hey, I just want to go back. And then we get to the 4th phase, and this is depression. We're overwhelmed, we don't feel like we have any control in our life. This is a time where people ask, what's the point? And this can be very, very dangerous. Sometimes at this point, some of you, not all, I see some of you are very positive, and I know that you are. I know many of you personally, but under pressure, this can be very, very dangerous. And a lot of us behave in ways that are very predictable under pressure based on our personality types and styles. And we can learn how to be able to manage that if we get some help. But we may need help right now to deal with this phase. Then we get to the final phase, which is acceptance. And this is not where we say everything's going to be all right. Because as some of you said in the chat, this is the new normal. We have no idea how long this is going to last. And my feeling and belief is that the coronavirus, basically, you know, the SARS strain has been around for hundreds of years, if not forever. And it's going to be here to stay. This is the new normal. So if it's not going to be okay, the question is, are you going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? The theme today is to put on your mask and your cape, alluding to becoming a superhero for yourself, to be able to overcome these challenges, to be able to accept the new normal and thrive in this current situation. And my hope is today that I can give you one, maybe two things that could help you put on that mask and that cape and own the new normal and be more confident, to be able to have the ability to go out and have the success that you deserve and that you want. This is a challenging time, no doubt about it, but there are many people who are doing well. And I've had to learn how to pivot, and I know many of you have, and that's wonderful. So my hope is, like I said, maybe one or two things will help give you that charge and that hope that you need. So what can we do? Okay, this is kind of a tough way to start talking about all these depressing things. Well, there's 5 things that I want to share with you where we can start. And really, one of the first things I want you to think about is, yes, it's difficult. Let's not deny that. When we're angry, when we're frustrated, if we stuff those feelings and don't acknowledge them, that creates all kinds of other challenges. It is okay to talk about our frustrations, our anger. And a lot of times as leaders in business, we think, well, I can't do that. I can't allow people to see my weakness. You know, it's probably not a good idea to share all of those thoughts and feelings with your direct reports, but find someone that you can. It's important that you have conversations, that you let some of those things out, that you acknowledge that. So let's talk about some other things that you can do to help. And number 1, look for humor. Look for the fun. And we'll talk just briefly about that. And number 2, understand the power of questions. I asked a few questions when we talked about anger. Why is this happening to me? What has God abandoned me? Why am I struggling and so frustrated? But we get to change those questions. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the importance of gratitude. There's a concept called learned optimism that I'm going to share with you that will be helpful to you as you struggle through challenging times because, well, I don't want to let that out of the bag. So I want you to stick with us and hear some of these concepts. And lastly, there's a concept called act as if. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means. And these things, I believe, will help you to own this new normal. So let's start with having some humor. You know, we get to have some fun. And there are challenges that everybody's experiencing. I don't know about you, but some of us have Zoom fatigue on Zoom a lot of the day. I know you guys, many of you are. And this is somebody's posts on Twitter who said, you know, I now I only have to commute from my couch to my bedroom, and I'm still late for meetings. And so where is the problem really? It's with us. We get to realize that it doesn't matter how far the commute is. Being on time is a choice and a mindset, and that's I thought that was funny. So here's another one. Let me move my picture over here. I just did this really hard escape room. I don't know if you guys have escape rooms there in India. It's a kind of a entertainment. And her coworker says, "You mean your company's Zoom meeting?" Maybe some of you want to get out of those escape rooms like this. Here's one that I thought was pretty funny. When you have audio only versus, you know, I put my jacket on for you guys because we're on video, but you have no idea what I'm wearing below this, right? So here's me waking up 30 seconds before my company meeting now that I don't have to get into the office and commute. You know, some of us think, well, we've got all this extra time that we're not commuting. Maybe we can do something positive and constructive, and we still don't do it. And again, that's all about behavior. So I love that we can dress in our skivvies or underwear where people can't see that. It's so much more comfortable to be able to do this and work from home. So here are a couple of comfortable shots. Manoj, I think that that's probably you most of the day, right? In your meetings. Here's me most of the time in my office with my shorts and sport coat on. We get to have fun, you guys. Things are tough. We get to laugh. Look for the fun. So I want to talk to you now about how to ask powerful questions. And we're going to, I'm going to change the camera here and microphone. How do you deal with anger? Give me just a second here. And all right, hopefully you can still hear me. And I'm going to pull up my whiteboard.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you, Manoj. So if you can see the whiteboard, what we get to do is we get to change the kinds of questions that we ask. Instead of saying, why me? Why is this happening? How could God allow this to happen? Once we start asking ourselves different questions, we will have different results. The brain will do whatever you tell it to do. It will find the answers that you ask of it. There's a part of the brain, it's amazing. It's like it makes the search of Google look like searching on stone tablets with a chisel, right? Because it's so slow. But our brains, when you ask it a question, it will go out and find the answer almost instantly. So better to ask a question, for example, like, what can I do? What can I do now? Is there something that I can change in how I work and what I'm working on? This, then your brain starts to think, okay, maybe what I'm doing right now is not working. Maybe how I'm leading my team is not working. Maybe how I'm thinking about the challenges is not working. So we get to start asking better questions. Who can help me is a great question. Who can help me? Is there somebody that has experience or knowledge that you don't have that you can reach out to? You have mentors in your chapter. You have all kinds of mentors through Project Management Institute. There are so many people that you can go to that if you start saying, well, who has answers that I don't have? That gets you thinking positively, gets you out of that depression, gets you out of that anger, because when you take action, it shifts your energy into productive activities. So who can help me now? How can I improve my skills right now? This is such a great time. You guys are here for this Mumbai PMI Project Management Chapter meeting. That says so much about you. There are a lot of other people that are it's evening on a Saturday night. To me, that is incredible dedication that you have. But this is an opportunity for you to say, how can I improve my skills? What can I learn to make me more valuable? How can I go out and be able to upgrade my skills so that I can be more valuable to my employer or more valuable to my future employer? So what can I do? And what can I do to improve my resume? What can I do to improve my resume? Once you start thinking of questions that, instead of saying, why me, why is this happening, that gets our mind focused on the problem. When you ask powerful questions that are open-ended, what, how, let me think of something a different way, it gets your creativity going. And it helps you to be able to shift that focus. This is an activity that I challenge you to do if you're struggling. Sit down, start asking yourself different questions, and there's many more that you can ask. What am I doing that is helpful right now? What are the strengths that I get to really work on more? What are the things that I'm lacking on my resume that would help me go to that next level? So these are questions that if you think about, you will be able to change your focus, change your energy. It's part of putting on, you know, that superhero cape for yourself, and really being that hero that you need to be for your family and for yourself. So learn to ask those powerful questions. Oh gosh darn it. Now the cat's out of the bag. All right, so here's what I want to do. I want you to close your eyes right now. And whatever you do, don't think of a white polar bear. And if you saw a white polar bear, even though I told you not to, I want you to put it in the chat. So one of the things that I usually say is, you know, whatever you do, don't think of a red bicycle. And as soon as I say don't do that, your brain focuses on the red bicycle. So if you saw a white polar bear when I asked you not to, put that in the chat. We tend to do what we are told not to do. I saw a white polar bear. I saw it. Why? Because the brain doesn't understand don't. It doesn't. So if I say, you know, to a child, don't spill the milk, or, you know, what are they focused on? They're focused on spilling the milk. Instead, tell the brain what you want it to do. Hold that milk carefully, right? Or help me find an answer to my problem. Instead of focusing on the challenges or what we don't want, we get to focus on what we do want. That is the power of questions. Thank you for responding. Affirmation, I saw the polar bear. Thank you so much for responding. So the next thing that I want to talk about, number 3, we got humor, we got powerful questions. We want to increase our gratitude. And I want to tell you a story about my friend, Nicole Kelkowski. You can see her. She's the mom in this picture. And we just had her on our podcast not long ago, and it was an extremely popular episode. And she talked a lot about her life. And I've known Nicole for many years. And she talked about dealing with hardship and challenge. And she's got a beautiful family, and she and her husband are happy. But growing up at 15, she was abused. She was neglected. She had a tough time in her life, so it wasn't all wonderful growing up. And she then had these 3 beautiful daughters and a beautiful son. And her son, Ryan, has a severe form of autism. And in addition to that, he has a life-threatening disease on top of his autism. He cannot talk. He, for the most of the part, he's in a wheelchair. They have to do everything for him. They have to feed him. They have to brush his teeth. And many of the days, he is not compliant, or he is in pain so much of the time. You know, they can't do a lot as family. They want to go somewhere or go on an activity as a family. If he has a seizure, they have to take him to the hospital. They just have to be so flexible. It is a challenging time. She says there are times when she is just curled up on the floor of the hospital room crying. How does she deal with this? She's a very social person, but she is isolated because she has to focus so much on her son. She can't go very many places. She can't, you know, they can't take him a lot of places because sometimes he reacts negatively to people and to new situations. He gets overstimulated, and it can be a very difficult life. And I asked her, so how do you handle that? How do you live with that uncertainty or those challenges that you have to do every day? And she says, you know what, Spencer, I just think about what a special child this is that God has given me. I think about how wonderful he is. And there are days, you know, when I hug him and he pushes me away. But there are days that he gives me a hug without asking. And that makes it all worthwhile. I just get to think about how blessed I am. And as soon as I think of the gratitude that I have for this boy and my family and my husband, my daughters, all my self-pity all my frustration, all my anger, it goes away. I want to tell you a little bit about what I've learned personally, and this is a concept that I believe in. My mother, beautiful woman, she grew up in Canada. She brilliant. She was an opera singer. She was an English major and had a master's in English. She wrote and taught literature. And in her 30s, she had breast cancer. And later in life, in her 40s, 10 years later, she had a bone cancer. And I was young, 18 at the time. And she and my father were divorced, and she came to me and said, you know, all our siblings, I have 2 sisters and a brother. She said, the doctors say that I have 6 months to live. And this is a picture of me of her when I was about 19, getting ready to leave to serve a mission for my faith for about 1.5 years. And she wanted me to go because that was part of our beliefs and our faith. She said, you know, you need to go. This is important for you. Don't worry about me. But she's got a wig because all her hair is gone. And just such an amazing woman. But I left. I went to Rome, Italy for about 1.5 years. And, you know, she is a teacher and her students absolutely love her. They adore her. They would come over to the house and visit her. They would write her letters. When I left, they gave her, somebody gave her a hug and broke 3 of her ribs. That's how brittle her bones were. And she got pneumonia and couldn't teach for about a month. And when she came back, students had this big surprise party for her. And my mom was pretty amazing. I would invite her to all my friends' parties. My friends loved her. She was fun. She was educated. And as I was in Italy teaching the people there, it was hard. I mean, I was a 19-year-old boy far from home and thinking about my mom. And, you know, I would just think about the challenges that I was having focused on me. And she would write me and she would say, you know what, Spencer, love the people, focus on them. She never complained to me. She never talked about how hard it was to go every day to work because she loved that, how much pain she was in physically, just to sit on a stool at school and not move because she was in such pain. And she didn't focus on that. She focused on me and helping me. And she lived longer than the doctor said. She did everything she could. And I remember getting a call towards the end of my mission saying, you know, she's not gonna make it come home. And I was my mother's executor for her estate. And so I flew home on a Thursday. They didn't think she would live for till the weekend. And she lived for another 6 months. And it was such a blessing. I got to spend that time with her. I cannot think about my mom and her example and be angry. That gratitude defeats any negativity. When we are grateful, even in extreme situations like we're experiencing right now, we can change our energy. And it makes such a huge impact on our happiness and our ability to be powerful in terms of controlling our own attitude and destiny. These are things that are, to me, so helpful. Now let's talk a little bit about what's called learned optimism. This is number 4. You know, creating meaning and focusing on what you can control. There's a psychiatrist by the name of Viktor Frankl, Austrian psychologist, who during World War II, he was in the Nazi concentration camps, and he created what's called meaning therapy. And then 2 other psychologists, Martin Seligman and Steve Meyer, when they were first-year psychology doctoral students, they conducted a famous experiment. And they conducted this famous experiment on dogs. And this was many years ago. I'm sure people wouldn't allow them to do it today, but what they learned was very important. They would put these dogs in 2 different cages. And in one of the cages, they had a little button that they could press with their nose, but they would get an electric shock that would last about 7 seconds. And in the first cage, if the dog pushed its nose against the button, the shocks would stop. And in the second cage, there was no such button. And so the dogs couldn't do anything about the electric shock that they were receiving. And many of them just, whenever they heard the bell that the shock was coming, they would just sit down and whimper and wait for the punishment, so to speak. But the first dogs were able to do something about it and take action. They took both of those dogs and they put them in a pen that had a wall that was high enough for them to jump over. And what they did is they rang that bell like they did in the box when the electric shock was ready to come. And most of the dogs that had the ability to control their environment jumped out before the shock came and didn't get that punishment. Most of the other dogs that didn't have the control, when that happened, they just curled up and waited for the punishment. Now, what was most interesting was that they determined that this was a form of learned helplessness. But what they found is that of those dogs that didn't have control in their life, 1/3 of them never gave up. They never gave up trying, even though they didn't have control. 1/3 of them jumped out. And they were most interested in these 1/3 that had the opportunity to learn helplessness like most of the other dogs. But why was it that they didn't give up? They had come up with this concept of learned helplessness and then learned optimism. And when they first came out with this theory, fellow psychiatrists and psychologists said this is ridiculous. Animals don't have this ability. They can't learn anything. And of course, in subsequent research and analysis, they found that this is absolutely true. We as humans, as well as the dogs and animals, can all learn optimism and helplessness. And so what they found is that he wanted to understand this never give up attitude. And he found that optimists experienced about as many challenges and hardships as pessimists. The difference was how they viewed these events. Optimists would search for temporary and specific causes for their hardships, but pessimists assumed that the causes were permanent and pervasive and so couldn't be undone. And that was their thinking. So again, optimists basically said, I have this hardship, and they didn't have any less hardship than those who were pessimistic, but they said, you know what, what's happening right now is temporary. It's not going to last forever. But those who were pessimistic said, I have no control over it, and nothing I can do really matters. So here's what I want to do. I want you to get ready to chat, because I have a question that I want to ask you. We're going to do a live chat right now. And the question I want you to answer is this. Imagine you can't get all of the work done that others expect you to do. Now, I want you to imagine one major cause for this event that's not allowing you to get things done. What comes to mind? Go ahead and put that in the chat. Imagine you can't get all the work done others expect you to do or expect of you. Now, imagine one major cause for this event. What comes to mind? Someone has a mental block, panic, priority of tasks, burnout, my willingness, urge to complete. I get sick. Maybe you have too many tasks, expectations. The skill is not there. Bandwidth, introspection. Brilliant. Again, has to put extra effort out. Okay? So those are some great comments. So I'm sociable. That may be causing the delay in the work. This question that I just shared with you was the question that Dr. Seligman and Heyer asked over analysis, yes, asked their research subjects to consider. So they actually used this question in the research. And what they found is that pessimists might say, I mess everything up. I can't do this. Don't know enough. I'm not smart enough. There is not much I can do to change. They can turn minor issues into major challenges. And this can cause people to give up. And if you're an optimist, you might say something like, I don't manage my time well. I allowed myself to get distracted. Like you said, this means the situation is temporary and fixable. And this can be a motivator to change your behavior and therefore change your situation. You know, what they found in their research was that pessimists were more to experience depression, suffer anxiety. They were, they almost suffered more. And there was a couple months ago, there was some research that came out that you might think during the shutdown that those people who are highly extroverted would suffer more with all the social distancing. And what they found is initially, and I don't know if this is holding true as the time goes on, but they said initially those extroverts are doing better because they reach out to others and they're typically more optimistic, typically. And what the research found is that optimists are less likely to drop out of school. They're more likely to stay committed to long-lasting relationships. There's research done through corporations like MetLife that found that optimistic sales reps were able to sell about 25% more. Other professions like telecommunications, real estate, auto, banking outsell pessimists by 20 to 40%. They're more productive. They have less downtime. They do better in school. They're more committed that way. The research eventually led to what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. And this therapy is amazing because it helps us to change our story. Just like I was talking to you about changing the questions, when we change the story about what's going on in our life, we're able to see things differently and get better responses. And we're able to talk differently about our experiences and our conditions. Hardship is something that most of us will experience in our lives, and it can be a positive catalyst for change. You know, I started working for a leadership training and development company in 2008, and they hired me to do organizational development training. And this was just before the last Great Recession, and their sales cut in half almost overnight. Very similar to this, although this is much worse and much faster. But at that time, it was also very rough. And they said, you know, there was not a good time to look for another job, and revenues were just dying, and overhead was high, and so they needed me to go out and sell. And so starting with January 1st, 2019, I was selling leadership training on 100% commission during one of our greatest recessions at the time since the Great Depression. And it's one of the first things that companies cut is training. And it's obviously one of the last things that should be cut because of the impact on productivity. Lots of companies are hurting right now. People need help. They need support. But I decided to approach the sales process differently than most of my coworkers. They all had a book of business that they could get referrals from. I didn't have that. I had to start from almost nothing. And I had more success than I'd ever had. It was hard still, very variable income, and that was hard on the family. But I made a goal to become the CEO of that company in 5 years, and I did that in 5 years and 1 month. I was the fourth CEO in 5 years. They had challenges, they had problems, and they needed to change. They needed to do things differently. And they decided they didn't want to change. That's very ironic for a leadership training and development company that teaches people to change. But after 7.5 years, I found myself without a job. That was July 31st, 2015. On August 1st, 2015, I started my own company. I started asking myself, what can I do? How can I transition? How can I take everything that I wanted to teach this company and apply it to my own company? And it was a blessing in many ways. This hardship could have, created a tremendous amount of fear. And instead, I decided that we would transition to our own company. And if you're interested in learning about how I did that, maybe you want to be able to transition into your own consulting or start your own business, or maybe you have a side hustle or side business that you want to grow. On August 20th, I'm going to be putting on a free webinar where I'll be talking about that. It'll be just about an hour later than an hour and a half later than we're starting tonight. But message me or email me and I'll talk to you about that. But this is something that I will happily share with you. And, personal crisis can cause us to have great success. People who have illnesses or cancer or diabetes or long-term diseases. My dad had a stroke. My mother had cancer. My father had all kinds of challenges, but it caused him to live his life differently. So these hardships, if we let them, can be a catalyst for positive change. It is up to us. I mentioned Viktor Frankl. I love his story. Such hardship, being in the Nazi concentration camps. He said, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing. And that is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, the ability to choose one's own way. We always have a choice about how we will act and how we will behave. We can't control our circumstances. And for many of us, that's difficult because we don't have the control that we like to have, but we can control how we respond to our circumstances. This is a picture of Viktor Frankl, and this is one of my favorite quotes. And basically, when something happens, SH, right? That's the stimulus, right? And there is a space between the stimulus and our response. And it's in that space, it could even be milliseconds, but it's in that space that lies our freedom and power to choose our response. And I want to share with you how this works. Typically what happens in our lives is that when something bad happens, SH, this circle represents something bad that is happening. The smaller circle is our reaction time. And in this case, it's overlapping. And that's not really real because there's always, even if it's at milliseconds, there's always a space because our brain has to receive that and then we react, right? But typically what happens when something happens to us that's negative, we respond immediately, right? Maybe you're driving in Mumbai where there's a lot of traffic. And maybe a foreigner like me comes in and we don't know the rules or the roundabouts or how, and we mess up the flow and I cut you off and you're like, oh, what a jerk, right? You react with that stupid foreigner, or maybe you're something that's happening to you, you're riding on the metro and somebody is not considerate of because they're talking too loudly and you want quiet, and just something that happens, and then we get frustrated and we come home and we're angry, or we get to the office and we're like, oh my gosh, the traffic was terrible. I can't believe those people who don't know how to drive, or those inconsiderate people we have all these thoughts, and it impacts our energy and our emotion. And so we react immediately. Sometimes we blame our ancestry for our reaction, right? People say, well, I'm German, or I'm Latin, and that's because I have a hot temper. That's why I have that. And so I just react automatically. But what Viktor Frankl says is that we have the ability to change. But I want you to think about your life. Where, in what circumstances do you blame? Where does it show up for you? How do you show up when something goes wrong? And I just want you to think about it for a moment. And we don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna zip through. But what he said, Viktor Frankl, and this is what's called at cause, meaning we're the cause of things that happen in our life. When something happens, if we delay our response, instead of just having our response immediate, you see how our power, our personal power, is by that little triangle, gets smaller and smaller. We have no control. But if we start instead, when something happens to us, we are conscious of our choices. We are responsible for our outcomes. We are passionate about taking control over what's going on and how we're responding. We become much more creative, and our power to change our circumstances expands, as demonstrated by the arrows going up and out. We don't respond immediately. And I call that the ownership factor. It's taking ownership for the results and outcomes in our lives. I want you to assess in your life where you can take greater ownership, where you can take more control of your responses and be more responsible for your outcome. I want to give you a scenario, and I want you to think, again, you're going to chat in just a moment. And I understand that the Indian equivalent of the FBI is the Central Bureau of Investigation. And I want you to just think for a moment that you are, even if you don't do this, go to a club. I don't go dancing. Let's just say that you're at a club with your friends and you're having a good time and you're dancing, and in walks a CBI agent. Got his jacket on, maybe has a firearm on his side. I don't know if you allow it there, but probably CBI agents are allowed. And this CBI agent gets really excited, takes off his jacket, starts dancing, and he's rocking out to the music. And he gets so excited that he does a backflip on the dance floor. His firearm falls out, hits the ground, and shoots you in the leg. This is the scenario. My question to you right now is, are you lucky or unlucky? Go ahead and put that in the chat. I want you to say, are you lucky or unlucky? Oh, we got a lucky, we got a lucky, we got a lucky, real lucky, 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 unlucky. Yes. Unlucky. So I want to know why you're lucky. If you said lucky, why do you say you're lucky? Lucky, lucky or unlucky? Lucky, and he will be unlucky. It could have killed me, right? And it didn't kill you. Great, great answer. It could have killed somebody else, and it didn't do that. So, this is great because you took one for the team. Unlucky because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, you got shot, right? I mean, you were just there having fun, and that happened. And this actually is a real life. This really did happen in the United States. And you're saying, well, of course it did in the United States, but it happened in Denver, Colorado, at a club. This FBI agent came in and danced and did a backflip, and his gun fell out and shot somebody in the leg. And yes, they survived. And the good news is if you drink, this person, the bar gave that individual drinks for life, and he was okay. But you get to think, how do you make different choices? How do you think about the challenges that we're experiencing right now are differently? How can you be more in that ownership factor when bad things happen to us? And I want to share with you a model, and then we'll have one more thing before we run out of time. I want to demonstrate how the ownership factor works. I want you to think right now of a situation in your life that didn't turn out the way you hoped. Maybe you responded in a way that caused the outcome to be less than positive. And this is, you don't have to share this. This is just for you. And I want you to think of, walking through this. So, for example, I had a conversation. I have a beautiful family, and every once in a while, under pressure, some things don't turn out the way we want. And we had a great family reunion, and my wife and I had all of our kids, except for our oldest daughter's husband wasn't able to come because of some extraordinary circumstances. And so she was, overwhelmed with her 4 kids and having to travel back to Texas. And the last day, she had to clean out the car because with 4 kids, the rental car got messy. And I was telling her, I said, don't clean it out. Why would you do that? I mean, the rental car will do it. And I wasn't thinking about the fact that 4 kids made it really messy, and that might be a problem. And she's like, we had a little argument. But what happens is sometimes something happens to us, and when she didn't respond the way she said, why would you say that? Right? The self-talks, well, why are you challenging me? I mean, I travel a lot. I know that the companies will take care of you, right? I mean, I had my beliefs, and these thoughts come in my head, and then that influences my attitudes, my feelings and emotions. And so I started getting frustrated and angry, and so my voice starts getting a little bit louder. And that's the actions or behavior. I start talking to my wonderful daughter in a way that's not as positive as I'd like to. And the outcome is that I now get to apologize because I've created a situation that is not what I want with my beautiful family. Maybe you have a situation at work that didn't turn out the way you want. I want you to go back and think again and start over. When something happens, you know, the situation where my daughter is stressed and she's running out of time, and I just think, okay, what's going on? How can I help you? And instead of thinking about, you know, just giving her the answer, what I think that I would do, putting myself in her shoes. And as I do that, I have greater empathy. I think more about her instead of less about me. And I don't get angry. We have a discussion, and I'm encouraging her. I'm like, so what I ended up doing is driving her to the airport and going into the rental car place with her and managing that so she didn't have to worry about that with her 4 kids. Took care of that, helped her to get into the airport. And our relationship is better and stronger. We had a great conversation. But we get to change how we think, and how we change. When we change what we think, our actions and behaviors change, and then our outcomes change. So, Manoj, how much time do we have? Are we out of time?
We have 5 more minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, I want to get to number 5. So our happiness has less to do with how much actual control we have, and more to do with how much we think we have. Because if we think we have control, like this model shows, then we do something differently and we get a different result. The final thing I want to share with you is what's called act as if. This is a principle that I really want to challenge you to create what's called an alter ego. And this is the principle that helps us to believe, act, dress, talk, and feel like someone that's already achieved success or had success. And the idea is to begin to program your subconscious to find ways to help you achieve the success or goals that you desire. Psychologist William James, he's really considered the father of psychology, said, if you want a quality in your life, act as if you already have it. You know, it's fascinating how powerful our thoughts are. I heard of a study where college students were interviewed about why they drank. And they said, well, it makes me more fun. It helps me to have more fun, and it helps me to be uninhibited and have better communication. And so what they did is they did this study. They took the college students and they broke them into 2 groups. One they gave alcohol to, and of course they behaved how you might expect when they were inebriated. But the second group they gave alcohol-less drinks to. They told them it was alcohol, but they didn't have any alcohol in them. And what was interesting is that they behaved the same way as the people who drink the actual alcohol. The brain thought that they were drinking so they had fun, they were uninhibited, but it wasn't influenced by any alcohol. It was only about how they thought. And it changed how they interacted with each other and with people. This is how powerful our thoughts are. Acting as if is all about changing how we think about ourselves, our environment. If you want a promotion at work, start behaving in a way that your managers would expect a person in that position to behave, even if you don't have that role. Start doing the things that you would do. Don't wait. If you want to lose weight, start acting like a person who would be healthy would behave. Behave healthier. Act as if. Put down the sweet naan, right? I mean, for me, I got to put down the donuts and the ice cream, and start exercising more. As a result, we'll create the outcomes that we want when we start acting as if. Visualize the success you desire and start behaving that way today as if you had achieved that success. You create what's called an alter ego. So often we think, well, that's not the way I am. I'm not optimistic. I'm not outgoing. Rubbish. Stop making excuses. You can choose to be however, take your strengths and accentuate those. Take those weaker parts that you want to enhance and what's there already and let it come out. Now, I'm going to use a local here to the United States reference. Maybe you've heard of Beyonce. Well, you may not know that she grew up in a family of strong faith, Christian faith, and she is very shy. And it's really hard for her to get out on the stage and perform. And so she created this alter ego called Sasha Fierce. And she literally steps into this persona of Sasha Fierce when she goes on stage, and then she steps out of it when she ends that. Just like Clark Kent, he's got this mild-mannered style, but he's really Superman. You have within you that alter ego that can help you to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. I used to dream that I was underdog. You guys may not remember that, but that was a character that I would dream of. I want you to say what you're going to do to put on your mask and cape. What is one thing that you can do differently to own this new normal? And I want you to think about that as we wrap up. What can you do to really be more confident, to put on your mask and cape? Ladies and gentlemen, you know what? So much of the challenges we face today are based on how we think about them. And as we change how we think, our outcomes change. I want you to remember to look for the humor. Changes your energy. Look for those funny things that are going on, even in difficult circumstances. Obviously, it's easier to do it when we're down the road a piece, but you can do it now. Increase your gratitude. Think of all the things that you're so grateful for, that you're blessed with. Learn optimism. You can change, and even if things negative are happening to you that you don't have control over, there are things that you can control, like asking questions. And I skipped that one. Understand the power of questions and really start acting as if you want a promotion, you want to go out and start your own business, you want to do something differently, start behaving as if you would if you were already there. Now, I'd love for you to connect with me. Don't connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm almost I'm close to 30,000. So if you want to follow, that's fine. But if you want to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram, you're able to do that. I'd love to connect with you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I don't know what we have now, Manoj, but
yes, we can have some Q&A, and if people want to have some questions, they can ask you on the chat, and then we'll have a vote of thanks.
Awesome. Well, I am so grateful that you gave me this opportunity to be here. I believe that you can, even when you can't control your circumstances, the some things that happen to you, you can control your response. And you can put on that mask and that cape, and you can be happy, and you can change your circumstances by how you think and by how you act. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Spencer. It was a wonderful session. It reminds me of my when I was under training with you and during our LIMC 2017 batch. And you said one thing which still I remember very clearly is it's all in your mind. I remember you gave us a 1 foot iron bar, which is basically used in foundation. When you have the steel foundations, people use it for the grouting part, the rod. You asked all of us to bend it, and none of us could do it except you. And you just put it on your leg and on your left foot, and you just twisted the bar. I was amazed. So, and you said it's all in your mind. If you think you can do it, yes, you can bend that bar. So thank you.
It's not about how strong. It's not how strong you are, is it, Manoj?
Yes, that's what he said. It's not about strength. It's about all in your mind.
And using the assets that you have available to you.
Right. Thank you so much. I invite Falguni and Rafael David. Rafael, if you can just give a vote of thanks, and Falguni, special thanks from your side as well.
Yeah, sure. Manoj, let Rafael go first. I have lots to share for Spencer here.
Okay. Hi, Spencer. Thank
Well,
you
hello,
for
Raphael.
hey, for such a beautiful session. I won't take too much time. Um, I especially as is really charged by hearing you. This 1 hour has really changed my perspective. It has been an introspection. I'll surely wear my mask and cape and surely turn my alter ego and do what best I could. This particular pandemic has been a great time for self-introspection. I especially thank you for sharing your insights, for your personal experiences. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to hearing you on August 20th. You mentioned if you were to reach out to you, you would be able to share your link. So thank
Yeah,
you.
it's
Take care.
I shared my thank you so much, Raphael. I put my email in the chat. If you want to email me, I will send you an invitation. It's free. It will be an hour session, and I'd love anyone who is on here who wants to join. Just send me an email. Thank you.
It will be a privilege. Thank you. Thank you, Spencer. Over to you, Falguni.
Yeah, sure. And I would encourage each and every participants that take this advantage. You never get Spencer time free. This is the golden opportunity, and just utilize this, because that 1 hour of session will change your complete life perspective. So, and that I have experienced myself. And Spencer, coming to today's session, I was really looking for some energy because I had a lot of things to do next week. And I think this session has really bumped my energy level. So definitely, before I say more, I think let me ask participants if they have any question. Let's cover that, and then I'll talk about the rest of the things.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, all that are, and thank you for your kind words, Falguni.
Anytime, yeah. Anyone has any question, anything you want to ask, whatever you feel, even if it is not related to sessions, you can ask. And Spencer has a lot of good advice, so please feel free to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, let me, I am Bharat Bhagat here. Am I audible there?
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Spencer, it's a wonderful session. And I remember my days earlier when I learned the basic thing that you reminded me again. Something has happened, and that is a stimulus. And then there is a result that has come, that action, and in between there is a pause. That is a wonderful thing that you reminded me again. And I'll tell you, that to change the behavior, something is there that our way of thinking has to change. And that comes from, something has happened that is a stimulus. And after that, we have to modify, or we have to upgrade our way of thinking to react or act. And that is where the behavioral change has come. It's a fundamental theory in behavior management that we have learned earlier, that you reminded me very much, very clearly, and very, very proudly. I am really happy that after 30 years of my learning, I'm just relearning the whole thing. People say we have to unlearn the thing, but I think it is nothing that this we can not unlearn it, but we have to relearn it again and again, that behavioral change. But one thing that I would like to teach, because in this pandemic, it's not only that individual behavior has to change, but if you could have touched the group behavior, organizational behavior, that is another part that pandemic the people will have to learn. Because as an individual, he may behave different, but in a group, he will behave totally differently. And that group behavior has the where the leadership has to control. That is a very important part. I hope I have touched the subject, which you can add in the next session. I'll be happy for that.
Bharat, thank you so much for your comments. You're 100% right. And working and changing behavior of the group is so much harder than the individual, right? I mean, so I'm a certified team performance coach, and I work with teams. It is more difficult, but it is so important, and it can be done. And you can do that. And you're right. It starts with leadership. It starts with their example. It starts with their desire to help people behave differently. But it's also getting clear about what are the behaviors that are happening on the team, and getting clear about where you want to go. And that takes time and effort. During economic hardship, a lot of companies aren't always willing to take that time, which is a shame, because we need more productivity, not less. We have, people are being laid off, and so that means the people that are left have to carry more of that burden. So we need to make sure that we're investing in them and helping them to be able to have those tools that they need to not feel overwhelmed.
Yes, that's right. Yes, thank you very much.
And we can't talk about that. We're out of time already.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, great.
Thank you so much, Brat. It was very nice to hear you talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Falguni?
Yeah, anyone has anything to share? No? Okay, so let me just thank on behalf of entire Mumbai chapter, Spencer, as usual, it was pleasure to hear you again and again. And that too at my hometown in my country. I never thought that we will have this kind of a virtual session with you. I was always discussing with you that can we have a face-to-face, and I was planning for inviting you for one of the conference. But I think the nature had a different things in for us, and that's why we are here today. But it was a great pleasure to hear you with full of energy, and I'm sure everyone will have a great sleep today. That is the first thing they will have after hearing you. And second is I'm sure a lot of learning, because there are so many things going on in each of us mind in this kind of a pandemic situation, and this is really going to help, and there at least their thinking will change. I know it is not going to change 100%, but they will have a way to think about it. So thank you so much.
Just something small. Just start with something
Yes.
small. And hopefully, Falguni, I haven't ruined my chances for coming back.
Definitely.
We look forward to inviting you someday. I'm sure as once things come back to normal, whenever it happens, Spencer, I personally will ensure you come to India and share your thoughts and ideas with all of us.
Yeah, and
I want to be there. I'd love to be there with you. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And this is a small appreciation from Mumbai chapter. Bharat sir, if you can just hand over the certificate to Spencer.
Good morning, Mr. Spencer Smart home. I am Bharat Bhagat here. I hope you can. There is a little on behalf of Mumbai chapter, myself and Mr. Manoj Sapan is presenting you his virtual certificates, and he will be posting you on a mail. Please accept on behalf of Mumbai chapters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brat, so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
All right, take care, everybody. Thank you, Spencer. Stay safe, stay healthy. All of y'all, bye. Take care. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Vilas, goodbye. Bye-bye. Dahwal, Manish, Gagan, goodbye. Bye, Vilas.
Stay safe, Spencer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Yeah. Bye.
Goodbye, Cedric.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.